Well, very early on this morning, right after I voted, we started getting text messages to me personally and also to our campaign that when they went to vote, the voters went to vote for me, it actually recorded a vote for my challenger. This was very troubling. We thought at first perhaps it's an anomaly, it's a one-off kind of a thing, but the pattern has grown, and now we're up to 19 precincts across Virginia Beach. And these are people who are willing to stand and say, no, this happened to me. And we actually have irrefutable video of this occurring. And this is disenfranchisement of the American voter. And this is not a partisan matter. And I'd like to think that every American citizen here in Virginia Beach, Democratic, Independent, Libertarian, this is not a partisan matter. This is about our vote. You know, the vote, the stability of that, the integrity of the electoral process is at the very heart of our republic. So I'm deeply troubled by it. I've been in touch with Ms. Patters of the Registrar's office here. I know they're doing what they can, but these machines are old. But I'd say this, we've got at this point 19. We know it's going to grow throughout the day, which is unfortunate. That is not an anomaly. That is a pattern. And in each and every case, it's going against us and in favor of my challenger. So something's really structurally, systemically wrong here.
When the voters call you, what advice are you giving them? What are you telling the voters to do?
Well, we're getting to as many as we can, and we'll never get to all of them. I think that needs to be noted. But what we're sharing with them is the absolute importance. When you get to the last page, as I did this morning, and I looked and said, okay, does this reflect exactly who I intended to vote for and try to elevate into public office? Once that's done, then you hit the go ahead and confirm or cast your vote. So if you're not really mindful of that, if you just went through each page and you just maybe did a quick glance at the last page, and I actually would say I did go through it, but if I had known that this was an issue, I think I would have slowed down a little bit. But I know I cast the right votes for the right people, but that's what folks need to do, is they need to slow down, look at the last page, and make sure that the vote reflects who they intended to elevate to public office.
What have you heard from the election officials that you've spoken to? Did they say why this is happening? There
was no explanation given to me. I know that they're concerned about it. Now, we've called for paper ballots at every one of these 19 locations. You know, the old paper ballot, if done right, is a very good system. It got us through for hundreds of years in this country. But here I am. You know, I'm 54 years old. We put a man on the moon 45 years ago. And the most basic technology, the most basic computer technology would be to say, I'm for candidate A or B. And we're not even getting that right in 2014. We need to get new machines and make sure that the American people can have confidence in their electoral system.
Did the registrar tell you that they were removing the machines? What did they say? How did they say that they're...
They said that as these machines are brought to their attention, they're taking them offline. Now, I can tell you that I got one report from one precinct of a person saying that they saw that the machine was not taken offline, that they had trouble with. The video evidence, really, that we have is irrefutable, that the person checked my name. I saw the video, and it actually went to my challenger. Now, I'm not in any way saying that there's nefarious intent here, that somebody's doing this deliberately, but something's wrong, because how could it possibly be that across the district, certainly in Virginia Beach, that when they're trying to vote for Scott Rigell, that my challenger's name is highlighted? Something's not right here.
If this turns out to be a close night, what will your campaign do to address any sort of discrepancies?
Well, I have a moral obligation, I think every person involved in this whole process does, to make sure that voters are not disenfranchised on either side. And so we're looking at every option. I'd say the full range of options would be open to us. But what we hope is that the registrar can act quickly enough to give our campaign the confidence that although it's irrefutable that there have been serious errors that have occurred up to this point, that at least when it was brought to their attention that they pivoted very quickly. There are some common sense things that we could do here. We could put, for example, a 4x4 sign right there that says, be sure to check the last page. Now, this can be done very quickly. It could be printed and brought out. We don't want to have to do this election over, and I'm not saying that we're going to call for that. But we are going to make sure, to the extent that we can, and influencing in this, is that we have a fair election in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. The voters, they expect that, they demand that, and they're deserving of that.
What are some of the other options? What are the options?
Well, in terms of making sure that the integrity of the vote is accurate today, what we're going to be looking for is the response from the Registrar's office. It's not our responsibility on the campaign side to ensure that there's integrity in this process. That is the duty of the Registrar's office. And so we're going to be looking for the response of the Registrar's office. I'm looking for the guidance of each and every voter from this hour forward until 7 p.m. to check that last page. This is a good assurance that they've cast the right vote, the vote they intended. Now, if in this hypothetical situation that things really don't get better throughout the day and our confidence level is not there that we've had an accurate vote, well, certainly if we're on the flip side of that, then we'd consider every option. But I can't go any farther than that because I just don't know. We hadn't given it that much thought. Yes. And then, yes.
Okay. I spoke to Donna Patterson, the Virginia Beach Registrar, and she said it's only a handful of machines at 3 to 4 different polling places, but you're describing a whole different issue.
Yes, I would say to that point there, I don't dispute what information she had at that time. Ours is real time, and I welcome a careful examination of our data. I welcome a careful examination of what we're sharing with you here today. It's so deeply troubling. I know that what I'm sharing here today is a serious matter. It should be looked at very carefully, but these are men and women, at least 25, and we are confident it's going to be far more than that, and 19 locations, 19 different locations that are saying we'll stand and be counted. They can be interviewed, they can be talked to, and they're just fellow Virginia Beach citizens who are just trying to cast a vote in the direction that they think our country needs to go.
And all those voters that have complained to you, were they able to alert the elected official and then cast the ballot that they wanted to, or did they experience more?
They did, but it was through a laborious process, and see, they caught it. See, what my concern is, and I think the concern of every citizen here, is what about the ones who just didn't pay close attention? You know, when you cast the ballot all throughout that electronic process, of course, at the end, you get this final summary page. Well, if you clearly indicated who you wanted at each of the previous pages, and if you're in a bit of a hurry to get to work or take your kids to school or whatever, you just go, wow, cast the vote. Let's get it over with. It takes some time and thought. There's a lot of things going on that ballot. There's a lot of decisions being made. So you'd have to slow down and look at that, and that's what we're asking voters to do. And I don't dispute the information that she gave you at the time. Ours is real time, and we are not nearly through the day. We're not even up to noon, of course.
How are you monitoring
and then
it
yes.
the day? How are you monitoring it throughout
well,
the day?
we've made a real effort to get this information out by every electronic medium and by, you know, just word of mouth, so that we're encouraging voters when they go in to go through this process. We're also encouraging anyone who has had trouble to call us and to let us know. We actually reached out to our competitors, our challengers' campaign, to say, was anything going in their favor? That is, did someone intend to vote for, well, against them, I should say? Was the same thing happening on her side that was happening to us? And at the time that we called, the report was no, that they've not had any reports of someone intending to vote for my challenger, but actually the vote being recorded for me.
When was that?
This was approximately an hour ago, and see, this is what is, well, be troubling in any case, but that's particularly troubling because you've got every era is going against our campaign and against in favor of my challenger. So that concerns us.
Well, I can tell you that I actually did speak to the campaign manager, and she said they only had one report, but she said that they have total faith in the system. Do you share that same sentiment?
Well, absent any reason to believe otherwise, I would too. I didn't wake up today thinking that we were going to be talking about this issue. I thought we'd be talking about the outcome of the election and where we'd head as a nation. It never dawned on me that we'd be standing here talking about this issue that is such a serious one. But see, I've got information that our Challengers campaign just doesn't have. Because we're on the receiving end of it. You know, folks who are trying to elevate us to send me back to Washington are saying, Scott, I tried to vote for you, and the vote was cast for my opponent. And we've actually, about 30 minutes ago, one of our supporters was trying to vote for me. It clearly showed that a vote for me ended up a vote for my challenger. This is on video. It's not in dispute. It's not something we would have or could have possibly have created. This issue is real, and we're not even halfway through the day. It's very troubling.
Do you find it strange that the problem only exists for voters who are going in to vote for you?
I do. I do. And I'm not a conspiracy person. I don't look for that. I don't see that. In fact, as a business person, I'm always, let's slow down and just look at the data. Let's not take one data point and run with it and make some type of bizarre and controversial conclusion. It started out slow, and we said, well, that's a troubling incident. Well, now we got 2. Now we got 3. We have personal friends that are texting my wife and me saying, we've had trouble. They're texting my daughter saying, you know, I tried to vote for your dad, had trouble. We're hearing this. It's pervasive enough to say it's not an anomaly. This is a trend. It's a very disturbing one, because this precious gift that we have been given to express our will as individual Americans through our vote, this is what our men and women in uniform are around the world defending. In part, right there is just our right to vote. And you'd think that as Americans, as smart as we are, we get this right. It's really quite simple. From a computer standpoint, I tell you, at the state level, at the federal level, we've got to get this right. These machines have got to go, and we've got to have confidence in our vote, that it is the vote that we cast is the one that actually ends up being counted.
The Virginia pilot is reporting that Registrar says that it's long fingernails and fat fingers that are the problem. Do you think that's the case? Or?
My initial response is it may be well-intended and intentioned, but it's, I think, a bizarre description here. If you look at the process of putting your finger there, I think I'm not a person that has those type of fingernails, of course, but if I were, you'd know if your fingernail touched it or your finger touched it, and I'd put it this way, too. If that is the case, that a person's fingernails is flipping the vote, well, that in and of itself is a problem. We should isolate the rest of the screen so that it's not responsive to any touch. It should just be the actual button that the voter is pushing. Look, as sophisticated as our iPhones are and our Android phones and everything else, we can get this right. We're Americans.
What is your understanding of the model of machines that they're having? You mentioned several times that these machines have to go. What is your understanding of the history?
Well, I think they're probably around not too much after this. I mentioned 45 years ago we put a man on the moon. I've asked for the age of the machines. I don't have that information now. I can tell you they're old. They're real old. You just look at them physically. They were tested, it's my understanding, about a month ago. And then they were put in a truck about a week ago and traveled by truck to the location. Once they were brought out to the location, they were not tested on site. So if they're bouncing around in a truck, and whether they were secured the whole time, I don't know. But I think common sense applies here. It does in life. And how is it that of these 19 locations and all these people who are having trouble with their vote, it's going against one candidate and elevating another? That is a very troubling trend and a set of data points. I'm not going to take the conclusion any farther than that at this point, but it has our full attention, and we're just going to see what unfolds. But every time I check in with our team, the numbers go up. we get more information in, including the video that is so clear, and that sound there of an F-18, I'm really mindful that we have men and women at risk to give us this precious right to vote. And there needs to be confidence in it. And again, it's not a partisan matter, it's not a Democratic matter, Republican or independent or libertarian. It's just an American issue. I thank you all.
Well, you're talking about voters that may go in, be in a rush, not pay attention, vote. So isn't there the possibility that someone went in, quickly voted, not realizing, they voted for their opponent, but the vote went to you?
Well, I guess it's a theoretical possibility, but how is it that it's only our folks who are trying to support the Scott Rigell for Congress line that are the ones that are reporting this? I would think that those who might be supporting my challenger, if that happened to them, that they would report that to the other campaign. To my knowledge, that hasn't been done. And what we're going to do here is we're going to be guided by the facts, whatever the facts of the matter are. If the other campaign has reports of irregularity, of machine malfunction, then we'll go down that path. But at present, the information I have at this time is that it's all going against our campaign in favor of our challenger, and it's widespread. And unfortunately, the number keeps growing.
I believe you said that you supported, you believe that the registrar is going to do something good with this, but I just wasn't sure.
Well, the registrar has indicated, as she should, her great concern for this, and that they are taking steps. Now, I am reserving judgment on if that set of solutions that she's taking and the steps that she's taking is sufficient to meet the challenge. I'm not convinced at this point that it's sufficient. Not in any way. I didn't end the phone call thinking that everything's okay. I'll put it that way. Because it was not clear to me exactly what the plan was to ensure voter integrity and to ensure that voters aren't disenfranchised.
That's all we got time for now, you guys.
I thank you for your interest in this, and again, I wish it wasn't necessary, and I know you want your microphones back.
Yes, sir.